Let's be brutally honest for a second and stop pretending that the emo aesthetic and the black flame somehow compensate for the mathematical reality of ninja combat, because there is a massive collective delusion in the Naruto community that the moment Sasuke awakes the Mangekyou Sharingan represents his mid-series peak. But if you actually look at the cold hard data, at the performance on the field, and at the resource management, the transition from the Hebi era to the Taka era is, without a shadow of doubt, the most catastrophic and embarrassing tactical decline in the entire franchise. We are talking about the character who went from a cold, calculating, and virtually immortal strategist to an unstable lunatic who bleeds from his eyes every 5 minutes and needs a fucking dedicated medical support team just to avoid dying from his own stupidity. The Hebi Sasuke, the one who wore the white robe and carried the Kusanagi with the arrogance of someone who knows we are untouchable, was a walking fortress of versatility. The Taka Sasuke with the Akatsuki cloak is basically a glass cannon with a broken scope and a leaking battery. To understand the magnitude of this nerf, we first need to dissect exactly what was lost. And I'm not just talking about flash jutsus, I'm talking about the battle economy. The loss of the curse mark wasn't just the loss of a physical transformation or a raw power boost, it was the loss of the most efficient energy source that existed in the Naruto universe up to that point. Think about it, the curse mark functions by absorbing natural energy. It is, in a sense, an external battery pack. When Hebi Sasuke fought, he wasn't just burning his own chakra, he was supplementing his reserves with the energy of the environment, which allowed him to fight for a long time, fly, and spend high-level ninjutsu without entering critical exhaustion. It was a perfect sustainability system. Now, compare that to the Mangekyou Sharingan. The Mangekyou is not a battery, it is a parasite. It is glorified leech. Every time Taka Sasuke activates Amaterasu or summons the ribcage of Susanoo, he's draining his own vitality, destroying his own core cells, and burning an obscene amount of his unfinished chakra. But the whole goes much deeper when we analyze pure survivability. Hebi Sasuke had access to what I consider to be the most broken and underrated defensive ability in the entire series, the Orochimaru style body replacement technique. People forget how absurd this technique is. This isn't a normal substitution where you switch places with a lag. This is a complete biological reboot. You can have your arm ripped off, you burn it alive, you crush it, and with a proportional chakra cost, you simply vomit up a new body, full healed with 0 damage, ready for round 2. This made Hebi Sasuke functionally immortal against anything that wasn't an instant one-shot that disintegrate the entire body. He had a margin of error. He couldn't test the waters, take a hit to understand the enemy's mechanics, and reset the fight. Taka Sasuke lost this completely. When Killer Bee blew his chest open with the lariat, that was it. There was no vomiting and new Sasuke. He just lay there, spread out on the ground with his organs exposed, waiting for Karin or Jugu to save him from certain death. He lost his insurance policy and started fighting as if he still had it, which is the perfect recipe for disaster. Furthermore, we have to talk about the regression and fighting style, specifically in Kenjutsu. Hebi Sasuke was a lethal swordsman. His fighting was fluid, a dance of blade infused with lightning release, using Chidori Nagashi not just as an attack, but as an omnidirectional area defense that paralyzed anyone who tried to enter his personal space. He controlled the battlefield. The white snakes weren't just for aesthetics, they were tools of supreme utility. They functioned as grappling hooks for mobility, as hoops for immobilization, as remote sensors, and as physical shields. He had an answer for everything, be it long-range combat, close quarters combat, defense, escape. Now look at Taka Sasuke. Where is the sword? He barely uses it. His fighting style degenerated to stand still, widening eyes, bleed, and hope the black flame solve it. He became static. He became a fixed target. Against the Raikage, his strategy was literally to surround himself with bones and flames and pray the defense out, which is an admission of tactical inferiority. Hebi Sasuke would never have stood still trying to take a punch from the Raikage. He would have used the snakes to create a distraction, used the Chidori Nagashi to try and stun the opponent's nerves, or used the curse mark wings to gain air superiority and get out of range. And speaking about it, how does nobody talk about the fact that he lost the ability to fly? Three-dimensional mobility is, in any combat scenario, the supreme advantage. Hebi Sasuke with his hand wings could dictate the terms of engagement. He could get out of range of short-range fighters, he could bombard from the sky, he could reposition instantly. Taka Sasuke is glued to the ground. He runs, he is a pawn on the chessboard instead of being the queen. Against opponents like Deidara, Taka Sasuke would have been obliterated. Without the wings to read Deidara in the air, without the giant snakes use as sacrificial shields against the C4 nuclear explosions, what was he going to do? Glitter the clay? Amaterasu has a range, yes, but Deidara is fast and flies high. The lack of mobility and utility tools would make that fight impossible for the evolved version of the Uchiha. Let's enter the bizarre hike now, because the mental nerf was as severe as the physical one. The Sasuke trained by Orochimaru was a combat scientist. Look at the fight against Deidara again. He tested the earth type, calculated the range of the explosions, used genjutsu to verify the opponent's ice resistance, used giant shurikens to test mobility. Every move had a purpose. He was playing chess while Deidara was playing checkers. Now fast forward to Taka Sasuke invading the 5 Kagesame. There is no plan, there is no intelligence, it is pure teenage tantrum and suicidal arrogance. He walks into a room full of the most powerful ninjas in the world with zero intel, zero backup plan, and starts attacking everyone at the same fucking time. That is not confidence, that is stupidity. He abandoned surgical precision in favor of brute force, but he didn't have the durability to stand a brute force style. If Gaara hadn't intervened in the fight against the Raikage, Sasuke would have lost his legs, or even worse, his life right there. He was betting everything on a defense, his Susanoo, that he hadn't mastered yet and caused him excruciating pain every second. Where is the genius? Where is the cold analysis of enemy weakness? Hebi Sasuke would have infiltrated the summit, used transformations, gathering information, and attacked Danzo in isolation. Taka Sasuke decided to make a triumphant entrance through the front door that was almost vaporized by the Mizukage and disintegrated by Onoki. If not for Obito saving him in the Kamui dimension, Sasuke's stories would have ended right there, in a battle of blood and arrogance. There is also a fallacious argument that Amaterasu is kind of a one-hit kill. In theory, yes. In practice, it is the most inconsistent jutsus in the arsenal. Against Killer Bee, it worked. Kind of worked eventually, but at what cost? I know that Killer Bee used a tentacle plan to escape, something that Sasuke's supposedly all-powerful Sharingan failed to detect. Hebi Sasuke, with his sense enhanced by the snakes and the curse mark, which increased sensory perception, would have had much higher chances of noticing the chakra difference or the tactical fan. Amaterasu is a laze too. It encourages the user to stop thinking about how to bypass the enemy's defense and just try to burn everything. This caused battle IQ atrophy. Hebi Sasuke was forced to be smart because the Chidori has limitations, because fire style has counters. He needed to be creative. Taka Sasuke became intellectually lazy because he believed his new eyes were the answer to everything, when in reality they were just a powerful tool with an instruction manual he didn't read. Now let's talk about Team Taka. In the Rebi area, Sasuke selected the team as specific tools for specific goals. Suigetsu to tank and clear a path, carrying for radar, Jugo for brute force. He was the undisputed leader, and more importantly, he was the protector. He saved the team. In the Taka era, however, the dynamic reverses in a pathetic way. Team Taka exists almost exclusively to stop Sasuke from dying from the consequence of his all bad decisions. In a fight against B, Sasuke dies twice, like literally dies. The chest opened by the lariat, and even before that, B's lightning swords that turned him into a pincushion. Karin had to give him chakra and life force. Jugo had to transfer flash and chakra, an ability that ironically comes from the same source Sasuke lost, the natural energy of the curse mark. Sasuke became a burden to his subordinates. Imagine the shame of proclaiming yourself the avenger of the Uchiha clan and needing your henchmen to resuscitate you twice in 10 minutes against a rapper who is writing rhymes while beating you up. Hebi Sasuke, with his White Snake regeneration and Orochimaru modified body, would have tanked those damage with much more dignity, or better yet, would have avoided the damage with snake substitutions and clones. Another crucial point that is frequently ignored is poison resistance and passive immunity. By observing Orochimaru, Hebi Sasuke gained an absurd resistance to toxins and foreign substance. In the ninja world, where poison, gas, and paralyzing powders are common, this is a colossal advantage. Taka Sasuke lost all of that. He went back to having the biology of a normal human, albeit an resilient one. If he had fought against someone like Sasori or even against Shizune with her poison breath, he would have been in serious trouble. Hebi Sasuke would simply laugh and keep moving forward. It is these soft skills, these invisible passives that win wars, not just the giant lasers that shoot out of ice. The tragedy of Taka Sasuke is that he is a character in forced transition. Kishimoto needed to nerf Sasuke because Hebi Sasuke was too complete. He had no obvious weakness. He had range, defense, reeling fight, genjutsu, elemental ninjutsu, and elite taijutsu. For the narrative to advance and for Sasuke to feel the need to implant Itachi's eyes to get the eternal Mangekyou, he needed to suffer, he needed to go blind, he needed to be beaten. Therefore, the nerf is not just a fun theory, it is a narrative necessity. The author had to take the training wheels off the cycle, the curse mark, and the Orochimaru's power, and push Sasuke down a step hill without outbreaks to justify his subsequent desperation. But within the universe, if we are combat analysts, the trade is terrible. Imagine if Sasuke had kept Orochimaru's powers and gained the Mangekyou. Imagine a Susanoo coated with the curse mark armor, something we saw briefly in his Susanoo combined with Jugo in the war. But imagine that solo. Imagine him using Amaterasu, and if he missed or got hit, simply shedding his skin and trying again without the cost of immediate blindness, because Orochimaru's regeneration would help mitigate the optical stress. That character would be invincible. It would be Madara before Madara. That is why he had to be castrated. And we must mention the main summon, Manda. Yes, Manda dying to protect Sasuke from the Itachi's explosion, but the contract with the snakes remain. Taka Sasuke rarely summons snakes. He summons hawks occasionally, but the utility of a giant snake on the battlefield is unmatched. Manda, or his successor Aoda, who only appears much later, offers hearing control. Snakes dig, they can attack from underground, they can create instant trends. Susanoo is strong, but it is immobile or slow in most of its initial forms. A giant snake gives siege mobility. Taka Sasuke forgot he could summon arms and decided he wanted to be a lone samurai, ignoring one of the basic principles of high-level ninjutsu, numerical and mass superiority. If we put Hebi Sasuke against Taka Sasuke, the B-fight version, in a neutral arena, the result would actually be humiliating. Taka would be immobilized before he could activate an incomplete Susanoo, and even if he activates the Susanoo ribcage, Hebi Sasuke has Kirin. Yes, Kirin. Taka Sasuke theoretically still knows how to use Kirin, but Hebi Sasuke was the master of environmental preparation. He would spend the fight fighting fire style into the sky, something Taka stopped doing as often because he relies on Amaterasu to prepare the storm. And Kirin, being a light speed attack or close to it, coming from the sky, would break the incomplete defense of Taka's Susanoo. Taka Sasuke does not have the durability to survive that. Hebi wins by attrition, by intelligence, and by having an arsenal that covers all distance. In short, the Taka era is Sasuke period of power puberty. It is clumsy, painful, full of mistakes, and emotionally volatile. He lost the little elegance of the assassin trained by Seinen and traded for the raw, uncontrolled power of a cursed Legas. For us, the viewers, it was visually interesting to see the Susanoo developing, but for Sasuke as a combatant, it was a period of extreme vulnerability. He survived the Kagsummit and the fight against B not by tactical merit, but by pure plot armor and external intervention. So next time you see someone saying that Sasuke got much stronger as soon as he killed Itachi, remind them of the lariat, remind them that he lost the ability to fly, to heal, to shed his skin, and to think before acting. Remind them that the upgrade cost him his fucking autonomy and his competence, transforming him into a ticking time bomb that needed constant babysitters. True strength is not just the size of the explosion you can create, it is your ability to survive the explosion and keep fighting. Adding that, Hebi Sasuke was and always will be superior. If you agree that the white-robed Sasuke was the peak of style, or if you think I'm underestimating the Susanoo, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel for more deep analysis to go against the grain, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video where we will debunk more myths of the ninja world.